going on, everybody? All right, it's time to give you another rundown, but since it's the same old rundown, and they just keep eating the same old thing, I'm going to try and make it just a little bit different, so stay tuned, okay? As far as the lake levels, we're in really good shape. Kind of stalled over the weekend, we had, I don't want to say we had rain. We had some rainstorms, a little come and go. And I did notice back between Saturday, Sunday, Monday that the lake kind of stalled a little. It didn't really rise, but it just stalled. So we're basically at the 402.72, which is 3 inches below full pool right now. Lake Fort Green, my favorite color. 1 to 2 foot visibility, depends on where you are. And this is the weird thing. I usually try and give you the main lake temperature. Throughout the season, February, March, April, May, I'm giving you that body temperature on purpose. Some of you, once you get experienced, you can realize if the body is 54, in a warm trend, you may realize that some of the back creeks might be 60, 63 or more. And so, but we run the core, the main lake. And right now it's very peculiar. First of all, it's behind in temperatures, but there's everything between every 83 degrees and 89 degrees for me in the main body, depending on where I'm at. So it's kind of come into 3 tiers of temperature right now. The upper, the middle, and the base. But we're in full-blown summer. And the 83 degrees is going to be down south. The 89 is up in the upper part of the main lake. Okay, backwaters are certainly much warmer. The only backwater fish that I really would pursue these days is if I was in a tournament and wanted unders, because most of your big giant fish have moved out offshore. So as I said, it's been real redundant. I'm still throwing the Zoom Magnum Trickworm and Watermelon Candy. If you've been following, first of all, thank you. But just 2 weeks ago, this was full. And I just took my 2 last bags off of it. Okay? There was like 12 bags there. And there they are all chewed up. All right? That's about 80 some of baits in, I think, 8 days, 9 days of fishing. And yes, I'm down to the wire. I've got 1 last bag here that I'm going to add these to. Hopefully make it through the rest of this week with a great friend that's flying in today and going to fish the next 3 days with me. And I believe he has a few more bags of these, and then that's it. I'm praying that they switch to the African Special very soon, which is the next color, and you can see we're ready for that. We've got 15 bags of that at least, and we won't go through that many of those. It's not quite like the post-spawn brim revenge. And that's really what we're having, okay? So, how am I catching these fish? Again, it's going to be redundant, so I wanted to make this a little bit more flavor, a little bit different. The first 2 to 3 hours of the morning, I'm attempting to fish not necessarily shell beds and not necessarily just hard bottom areas, but 10 to 15 foot structures. So, think of an offshore hump or an offshore break at the 10 to 15 foot. It could be an offshore reef at that 10 to 15 foot. I want it where it breaks into some deep water fast. And also want it wind blown. So from day to day, I'm choosing some different locations, making a milk run. And from daybreak, 6 a.m. till about 9 or 10, I'm running those feeding table areas where I can run across balls of shad. That's the most important thing. As long as shad are in those areas, I may fish or I may not. If the shad is round in the area on my sonar, I'm probably going to leave. If the shad's been broken up into sections and pieces and elongated, and I see some streaks through it, boy, we're probably most likely going to stay. But again, I'm assessing some of these basic 10 to 15 foot feeding tables. Still throwing the same thing, the football jig, the Santone football jig, and the shaky head in those areas are probably more effective than the Texas rig worm. They have more contact with the hard bottom. As I've talked about before, the Santone football shaky head stands up, and I drag it uphill most of the time in some of these areas. So that should tell you I'm putting the boat up in 8 feet, throwing out into 15. Okay? Trying to keep stealth. Sometimes I'm having to tweak that equation too, and maybe throw a cross. They're getting used to us being there now. So I've got to shut down way out far out and idle in quieter or come in stealth from the backside, I got to just tweak it up on them every now and then to still catch them. They do learn about us. They do get smart. All right. So as I said, it's the Magnum watermelon trick worm, watermelon candy trick worm, mag trick worm, and then watermelon candy red when the sun shines. It's mostly, even with the sun, it's still been a better bite with just plain watermelon candy. Dipped tail chartreuse about ½ inch. I'm doing a pretty good deal on it. That's another tip. I don't use the dips. I use a pin. All right. It's cheaper. It's safer. You won't accidentally spill it or ruin your carpet or your boat. You won't stain your fingers as much. In fact, the pin, when you do get it on your finger, it ends up wiping away. It doesn't stay stained, but it works really well for doing the ends of your bait. As I said, this here is about 80 just absolutely tore up, trashed baits. And again, I'm probably doing that much, so maybe more like 3/4 inch. Take a pin and I just wide it real quick. It works better. You still got to be careful. The pin will stain, and you got to touch the water with it to seal the deal on it and finish it so it won't stain anymore. All right, but basically, the best bite, man, it's kind of been, it's hard to say. The best big fish are coming from trees. And so there was a couple questions that I want to answer in this rundown. And one of them was, explain what type of offshore trees, okay? And locations. So what I'm looking for when I go offshore is deep trees, not necessarily off of long points or ledges or in the humps, off the humps. But if you look at your topographical map, this is the only way I can help you make analogies of things. So look at your topographical map and think ocean, not lake. And then any feature that kind of starts from the shallow water and protrudes out, look at it as a reef. And the edges of that reef, the breaks, in essence, where the 10 and 15 foot water breaks out into the deeper water. But find something that projects out, like out in front of Dale Hump. Even Dale Point. Really all the points. Little Caney, Little Cheney, Big Cheney. If you realize that those make big structures and reefs, when you get out on those areas in the 30, 35, 40, 50 feet of water, you're going to find full trees. The whole trunk is there, and most of the top is there. And those fish can suspend anywhere they want in those trees. It's extremely difficult to pull some of those big fish out of there. And the best way to do that is with the Texas rig, as I've talked. So I'm not going to go through this. I don't want to be too redundant. 20-pound test minimum fluorocarbon line. Peg your weight so that the bait gets through the trees. You can throw a multitude of stuff at them once you find them. But honestly, the answer to your question, sir, is those trees can be anywhere and everywhere. The lake is full of them. It's a needle in a haystack. And you need to just go explore. You need to go look. And the last 2 finds that I've had have come when my client said, hey, we'll learn. Fishing had lulled. We'd caught fish in the morning. It had slowed down for an hour or so. And he said, well, let's just take a cruise and learn. And after 45 minutes or an hour of looking and learning and talking, lo and behold, wham, we found a mother lode of big bass. So go explore and know how to use your sonar and look at those super deep trees, especially off the long points, near the humps and near the edges of the creeks. You're going to find the creeks themselves are nothing but trees. And boy, can that be a huge needle in a haystack. So remember this, shallow water, you got a bunch of grass, so you're looking for the isolated patch of grass. Find the isolated single tree in the right place. Man, you find a mother lode. And you'll chew up a whole bag of worms in a week. And everybody that fishes with you is going to catch big ones. So thank you. Praise you, Jesus. Thank you, Mark. Pat. All right. I told you I was going to make this rundown just a little bit different. I don't know what else to say to you. I think I had one other question, which is in regards to shell beds. And we'll answer that in another state, I believe in Kentucky. Even here, you got them everywhere. Correct. There are shell beds everywhere at every depth. How do you determine good ones? The best way, number one, is it always has to be about current and wind. I found the most active shell beds are ones that have north and south movement. So if the north wind blows, they get some effective current. If the south wind blows, they get some effective current. A southern exposed point only gets south wind. So if the south wind ain't blowing for a week or two, that spot may not be a hot spot. The second, more importantly, is the bait there. When you go look at your sonar over that shell bed, if the bait fish is there, then the plankton is high sourced there, and most likely the bass are coming there to feed on that bait just like it's a deer feeder. So think river when you're looking for them. Find things that protrude out, even small little juts. Maybe you've got a flat that lays off of an 18, 20 feet of water, but it has a little niche on it. That little niche on it may catch current. When the south wind blows, that current, extra current that's in that area is where you might find some shell beds. But again, the answer to that question was, is there bait there? And 90% of the time, it won't be active unless the current is some sort. The wind or the lake or generating or whatever is affecting that direct shell bed. Live shell bed will be alive when the water's moving on it. That's my best tip for that. Again, I told you it's going to be a different rundown. Honestly, this is kind of what you're going to get in private corner rundown next year. February, by January, I'm going to kick it off. By February, there's going to be a private corner every week that you can subscribe to. There'll still be a weekly or daily rundown anyways, with some good information in it. But listen, last tip. I'm not trying to sell you this. It doesn't cost that much anyways. I've gone through 3.5 bottles of it. Every one of these was treated with it. I'm telling you, this is probably the game-changing factor for me when I find the fish. Location, location, location. Tear them up with the magic reaction, catch them all. I ain't kidding. So, man, thank you for watching. Thanks for all the support. Man, I don't know what else to tell you. I hope that this works for some of you here in Texas. I know it's working in other places, which is even more pleasing to me. Fishing's fishing. There's more than one way to skin a cat. And this is how I'm skinning it right now on Lake Fork. And I appreciate you watching, all right? I'm Mike McFarland, the Lake Fork Guide, shooting you straight. Hoping you all catch more fish.